A strange vessel smoldered in the dense forests of northern Idaho. Its metal hull cracked and blackened from atmospheric entry. Smoke curled into the cold night air, mixing with the scent of pine and damp earth. The crash had been silent. No fireball, no deafening boom, just a low hum that faded into the trees like a sigh. Deep in the woods, Maeve heard it. She was 24 years old, a forest ranger with calloused hands and quiet eyes. She had grown up among these trees, knew every trail, every stream, every bird call, but this sound was new. It did not belong. She stood still listening. The wind carried the faintest metallic tang. She frowned and checked her radio static. Only then she grabbed her pack, tightened the strap on her jacket, and moved toward the sound. Her boots crunched over frostbitten leaves, her breath visible in the moonlight. What she found stopped her cold. In a small clearing, half hidden by fallen branches, lay a craft, unlike anything she had ever seen. It was smooth and curved like a seed pod, its surface shimmering faintly even in the dark. One side was torn open, and from that opening stepped a figure tall and slender, with skin the color of pale birch bark. Her hair shifted from silver to soft blue as she turned her head. Her eyes glowed faintly like twin moons. Beside her coiled a creature no bigger than a large dog, its scales dark and iridescent like oil on water. It hissed low and protective, its wings half spread, its tail twitching. Maeve froze, her hand hovering near the flare in her belt. She did not draw it, she did not run. She simply watched. The tall woman turned fully, now her gaze locking onto Maeve with startling intensity. There was no fear in those eyes, only curiosity, and something else, something ancient and unreadable. The creature beside her stilled its hiss, fading into a low purr. For a long moment neither moved. Then the woman took a step forward. Maeve's pulse jumped, but she held her ground. "You are alone," the woman said, her voice soft, melodic, but oddly accented like wind through reeds. Maeve nodded slowly, yes. The woman tilted her head, studying her as if she were a puzzle or a rare flower. Then she took another step closer. The small dragon followed silently, its claws clicking softly on the frozen ground. "My name is Lyra," the woman said. "I am not from this world." Maeve swallowed, her throat dry. "I figured." Lyra's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, more like wonder. Then she reached out her hand, not to grab, not to threaten, but to touch. Maeve should have pulled away, but she did not. Lyra's fingers brushed the back of Maeve's hand, and instantly Maeve felt it, a rush of warmth spreading up her arm. Her skin tingled, her breath caught in her chest. Her heart hammered, as if it had forgotten how to beat calmly. She gasped, stepping back. Eyes wide, Lyra blinked, surprised then concerned. "Human, why does your body react so strongly when I touch you?" Maeve stared at her own hand as if it belonged to someone else. "I don't know," she whispered. Lyra studied her again more carefully, this time her gaze tracing Maeve's face, her neck, the rise and fall of her chest. "You are trembling, I know," Maeve said, "but I don't want to stop." That surprised Lyra. She lowered her hand, but her eyes stayed locked on Maeve's, as if trying to read something written beneath her skin. The small dragon padded forward, then circling Maeve, once sniffing the air around her. It stopped in front of her boots and let out a soft chirp. "This is Kale," Lyra said. "He does not trust easily." Maeve looked down at the creature, its eyes large and intelligent, golden with slitted pupils. It blinked slowly at her. "He likes you," Lyra added quietly. Maeve exhaled a shaky breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay then." She glanced back at the crashed vessel, smoke still rising from its side. The forest around them felt heavier now, charged with something unseen. "You need help," she said. Lyra nodded. "We cannot stay here." Maeve knew that too. The crash would have triggered sensors, satellites. Someone would be coming, and not just park rangers. "Come with me," she said before she could second-guess herself. Lyra hesitated only a second, then nodded. Kyle leapt lightly onto her shoulder, his claws gentle on her jacket. They moved quickly through the trees, Maeve leading the way, her mind racing, but her body strangely calm every time she glanced back at Lyra. That same warmth flickered in her chest like a small fire. She could not explain. They reached an old ranger cabin tucked deep in the woods, used only in emergencies. It had no electricity, no internet, Just a wood stove, a cot, a few supplies, and thick walls that kept the cold out. Maeve unlocked the door and stepped inside, lighting a lantern. The soft glow filled the room with amber. Light Lyra entered, slowly looking around with quiet awe. Kale hopped down and explored, sniffing every corner. "You can stay here for now." Maeve said it's safe. "No one comes out this far unless they have." Lyra turned to her. "Thank you." Maeve nodded and set about starting a fire in the stove. Her hands moved automatically, but her thoughts were tangled. Who was this woman, really? Where had she come from, and why did her touch make Maeve feel like she was waking up from a long sleep? Lyra sat on the edge of the cot watching her. "You are not afraid?" Maeve said it was not a question. "I am afraid," Lyra replied, "but not of you." Then what? Lyra looked toward the window, her expression darkening. "They will come for us." "Who? Those who destroyed my home?" Maeve stopped, stacking wood, and turned to face her. Lyra was silent for a long moment, then she spoke softly. "My people are called the Silthari. We lived among the stars in harmony with life in all its forms. We did not build weapons. We built songs, we did. Not conquer, we listened. But others saw our ways as weakness. The Drakthar," she whispered, "they came with fire and silence. They burned our forests in the sky. They silenced our songs. They hunted us until few remained. I escaped with Kale and something. They want very much." Maeve sat down across from her. "What is it?" Lyra placed a hand over her chest near her heart, something hidden inside him. She nodded to Kale. "The last Silthari war egg." Maeve frowned. "An egg not like a bird's egg," Lyra explained it, "is a seed of power. A living weapon that only awakens through bond with a human." Maeve blinked. What? Lyra looked at her directly. "The Silthari discovered long ago that our strength grows when we connect with beings of deep feeling. Humans feel more than most: your joy, your grief, your love. It stirs something in us, something powerful." Maeve felt her cheeks warm again. "That's why you asked about my reaction?" "Yes," Lyra said gently. "Your body is responding to me because you are capable of deep feeling, and that makes you rare." Maeve looked away, unsure what to say. The fire crackled in the stove, casting long shadows on the walls. Kale curled up near the hearth, his eyes half closed but alert. Outside, the wind picked up, howling softly through the pines. "We do not have much time," Lyra said. "They track energy signatures. My ship's core is still active. They will find it soon." Maeve stood and walked to the window, peering into the dark. Nothing moved, but she felt it now. The weight of something coming. "What? Do you need me to?" Lyra stood too and stepped closer. Not too close, but near enough that Maeve could see the faint pulse of light in her eyes. "Help me hide until the egg is ready. And then we fight." Maeve swallowed but nodded. "Okay." Lyra reached out, again this time not to touch Maeve's hand, but to gently brush a strand of hair from her face. The contact was brief, but Maeve felt it like a spark traveling down her spine. "Thank you, Maeve." Maeve looked into those glowing eyes, and for the first time in years she did not feel alone. The night deepened outside the cabin. Inside, the fire burned low. Kale slept. The two women sat in silence, not needing words. The forest held its breath, waiting. Somewhere far above, a satellite turned its lens toward the crash site. Somewhere else, a command center lit up with alerts. They were coming. But for now, in this small cabin hidden among the whispering pines, there was only warmth and the quiet hum of something new beginning. Maeve did not know what would happen tomorrow. But tonight she knew one thing: she would not let them take Lyra, not without a fight. Days passed in the quiet rhythm of the forest. Maeve brought supplies from her ranger station, canned food, blankets, fuel for the stove. She moved carefully, avoiding main roads, watching the sky more than usual. Lyra stayed inside, mostly observing, studying the cabin, the tools, the books on local plants and animals. Kale prowled the perimeter, his scales blending with bark and shadow, his eyes sharp for any sign of danger. Lyra asked many questions about humans, about Earth, about Maeve herself. She spoke of her own world in fragments, memories like broken glass, beautiful but sharp. "Your people sing to trees," Maeve said one evening, stirring a pot of stew over the stove. "We did," Lyra replied. "We believed every living thing held a song, and to listen was to honor it." Maeve smiled softly. "I think some humans still feel that way, just don't know how to say it." Lyra watched her hands as she worked, then reached out and touched Maeve's wrist lightly again. That warmth spread through Maeve's skin. Her breath hitched. You do it again. Maeve said, not pulling away. Am learning. Lyra said, your body tells me things. Your words do not. Like what? That you are afraid. But you stay, that you are curious. But you wait. That your heart beats faster. When I am near. Maeve looked down at their hands, then back at Lyra's glowing eyes. Is that normal? For my people? Yes, for yours, I do not know. Maeve swallowed but did not move away. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying a new sound. Distant but mechanical. Both. Women froze. Akale appeared at the window. His body low, his wings half spread, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Maeve moved to the radio on the shelf. Static hissed. Then a voice cut through, clear and cold. All units be advised, unidentified craft detected. Sector 7. Possible extraterrestrial origin. Repeat. Possible extraterrestrial origin. Do not approach. Await. Command. Maeve turned the radio off. Her face. Pally. They found the crash site, Lyra said. And now they're looking for you. Lyra nodded. They will not stop. What do they want with you? Really? Lyra sat on the cot, her posture stiff with memory. The Drakthar do not just destroy, they consume. They take what is powerful and bend it to their will. The war egg is not a weapon in the way you think it. Is it his life shaped by bond? It cannot be forced, it must be awakened, and they know only a human can do that. Maeve stared at her. So they want me to. Not you, Lyra said quickly. Not unless you choose. But if they catch you, they will try to use you to reach the egg. They will hurt you to make you feel enough to trigger it. Maeve sat down heavily on the floor, her hands trembling. Not from cold. Lyra knelt beside her, placing both hands on Maeve's arms. This time the warmth was stronger, deeper. It spread through her chest like sunlight after a long winter. Look at me, Lyra said softly. You are not alone anymore. Maeve met her eyes, and for the first time she believed it. That night they did not sleep much. Kale stayed by the door, his ears twitching. At every sound, Lyra sat near the window watching the stars. Maeve lay on the cot staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The next morning, Maeve taught Lyra how to use a compass, how to read tracks, how to move silently through snow. Lyra learned quickly, her movements graceful, almost unnatural, but she tried to mimic Maeve's steps, her posture. Her breath. You are a good teacher, Lyra said as they practiced near a frozen creek. Maeve shrugged. I just know this place. You know more than place, you know. Silence, you know. Patience, those are rare. Maeve looked at her. You really see people, don't you? Lyra smiled faintly. We were taught to look beyond the surface to see the light inside. Maeve felt her cheeks warm again. Later that day, while Maeve checked traps, Lyra stayed in the cabin sketching symbols on paper. Strange looping shapes that glowed faintly before fading. Kale watched, her tail curled around his own body. When Maeve returned, she found Lyra standing by the stove. Her expression distant. Something wrong. Lyra turned the symbols. They are warnings from my ancestors. They speak of a blood moon. When 3 nights from now. What happens then? Lyra looked at Kale, then back at Maeve. The egg stirs under red light. It grows restless. It needs a bond to anchor it, or it will fade. Maeve stepped closer. So what do we do? We wait, we protect, we prepare. Maeve nodded, but her stomach twisted with worry. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, a drone appeared high in the sky. Small, silent, black. It hovered for only a moment before vanishing, but Maeve saw it. Lyra saw it. Kale hissed and ducked behind the woodpile. They're getting closer, we must move, Lyra said, but where? Somewhere deeper, somewhere they will not expect. Maeve thought hard, then remembered an old mine shaft deep in the mountains, abandoned for decades, overgrown and forgotten. It's dangerous, she said, but hidden. Lyra nodded. Then we go tonight. They packed quickly. Food, water, blankets, the few weapons. Maeve owned a hunting knife, a flare gun, a rifle. She hoped she would not need. Kale carried small supplies in a pouch. Lyra wove around her shoulders, his claws careful not to tear the fabric. They left the cabin just after dusk, moving like shadows through the trees. Maeve led the way, her steps sure even in the dark. Lyra followed close, her eyes adjusting to the low light. Kale flew low above them, silent as smoke. Hours passed, the cold biting deeper. The snow thicker underfoot, they reached the mine entrance just before midnight. It was half collapsed, but a narrow tunnel remained open, hidden by fallen logs and thick brush inside. The air was stale but dry, the walls rough with old timber supports. Maeve lit a small lantern and set it on a rock. "This will do for now." Lyra looked around then. Nodded. Kyle settled on a ledge near the entrance, his eyes scanning the dark outside. They ate in silence, the stew cold. But filling, Maeve watched Lyra as she ate, her movements precise. Her gaze distant, yet aware. "You miss your home, don't you?" Lyra paused, then nodded. "But home is not only a place, it is also the people who carry its memory. I carry mine in here." She touched her chest, and in him. She nodded to Kale. Maeve looked at the small dragon now curled in sleep, his sides rising and falling slowly. "Is more than a pet, isn't?" He is my brother," Lyra said softly. "We were raised together from the time the egg chose me." Maeve frowned. "The egg chose you. Yes, the Siltheri do not choose their companions. The bond chooses them, so the war egg will choose someone. So if it finds the right?" Heart. Maeve looked down at her hands, then back at Lyra. "Do you think it already has?" Lyra held her gaze for a long moment, then reached out and touched Maeve's cheek. The warmth bloomed instantly, spreading through her like a slow fire. "I think it already has." Maeve's breath caught, but she did not look away. Outside, the wind howled louder, carrying with it the distant hum of engines. "They are searching," Lyra whispered. Maeve stood and moved to the entrance, peering out through a crack in the brush. 2 more drones circled high above, their red lights blinking like angry eyes. "We can't stay here long." Lyra joined her, standing close enough that their arms brushed again. That spark flared between them. "Then we fight soon." Maeve nodded. Her jaw set. That night they took turns sleeping. Maeve dreamed of silver forests and singing trees, of a light that wrapped around her like arms when she woke. Lyra was watching her. "You were smiling," Lyra said. Maeve rubbed her eyes. "Yeah, I was." For the first time in days, she felt hope. The next morning they practiced defense moves. Lyra showed Maeve how to sense movement through vibration, how to use silence as a weapon. Maeve taught Lyra how to aim the rifle, how to set traps using wire and branch escale. Watched them both, his eyes bright with understanding. By afternoon the sky darkened, clouds rolling in thick and heavy storm. "Coming," Maeve said. Lyra looked up, then nodded. "Good. They will not see us as easily." As the rain began to fall cold and sharp, they retreated deeper into the mine. The sound of water dripping echoed around them. Maeve sat against the wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. Lyra sat beside her, not touching, but Closetel. "Me about your people again," Maeve said. Lyra closed her eyes and spoke of cities built in the canopies of giant trees, of rivers that glowed with bioluminescent fish, of songs that could heal wounds and calm storms. "It sounds like magic. To you, maybe to us, it was simply life." Maeve sighed. "I wish I could have seen." "You still can," Lyra said. "The memory lives in me and now in you." Maeve looked at her. "How?" "Because you feel deeply, and that is how our world stays alive." Maeve reached out this time and took Lyra's hand. The warmth surged between them, stronger than before, like a current connecting 2 shores. Outside, the storm raged. The drones vanished in the rain, the forest swallowed all sound. But deep in the mine, something else stirred. Kale lifted his head, his body tense, his scales shimmering with a new light. Lyra stood quickly. "The egg." Maeve rose too. "What is it?" "It senses the blood moon even through the clouds. It is waking." Kale let out a soft keening sound and curled inward, his body glowing faintly from within. Maeve stepped closer. "What do we do?" Lyra placed a hand on Kale's side, then looked at Maeve. "Stay close, do not be afraid." Maeve knelt beside them, her heart pounding, not from fear but from something deeper, something pulling her toward them like gravity. The air grew thick with energy. The lantern flickered, then died, but the mine was not dark. Kale's glow filled the space, soft and pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra reached for Maeve again, this time, both hands holding hers tightly. "The bond begins now," she whispered, and far above the clouds, the first red edge of the blood moon touched the earth. The blood moon hung low in the sky, casting the forest in a deep red glow. Even deep inside the mine, its light seeped through cracks and crevices, painting the walls in shifting crimson patterns. Kale trembled, his body pulsing with a soft inner light. his scales rippling like water under moonlight. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands resting gently on his sides. Her eyes closed in concentration. Maeve stayed close, her breath shallow, her heart pounding, not from fear, but from something deeper. Something, pulling her toward them like gravity. "Stay with me," Lyra whispered, her voice steady but urgent. "Your feelings, your presence, they anchor." The egg Maeve nodded and placed her hands over Lyra's on Kale's back. The moment her skin touched them, a surge of warmth shot through her, stronger than before. It filled her chest, her limbs, her mind with a strange clarity. She could feel Kale's heartbeat, feel Lyra's thoughts like distant whispers, feel the egg stirring inside him, alive and waiting outside. The storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and still too still. Then a sound broke the silence. Heavy boots on frozen ground, voices sharp and mechanical. "They're here," Maeve said. Lyra's eyes snapped open, glowing brighter than ever. "The egg is not ready, but they will not wait." "What do we do?" Lyra stood quickly, pulling Maeve up with her. "We fight." Kale rose unsteadily, his wings unfolding, his body still glowing faintly. He let out a low hiss, his golden eyes fixed on the mine entrance. Maeve grabbed the rifle and moved to the tunnel's edge, peering out through the brush. 3 figures in dark armored suits moved through the trees, their weapons sleek and humming with energy. They wore masks that covered their faces, only their eyes, visible, cold, and empty. "Drakthar ground troops," Lyra said. "They do not negotiate." Maeve chambered around her, hands steady now. The fear was still there, but it was buried under something stronger. "Purposes." "Stay behind me," Lyra said, stepping forward. "No," Maeve said. "I stand with you." Lyra looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. The first Drakthar soldier reached the mine entrance and paused. Sensing something, he raised his weapon and fired a pulse of blue energy into the darkness. The blast lit up the tunnel walls. Maeve ducked, but Lyra did not move. She raised her hand and the energy dissipated like mist against an invisible shield. The soldiers froze. Then Lyra moved faster than Maeve had ever seen her glide forward, her fingers outstretched. She touched the lead soldier's chest and he collapsed instantly, his armor cracking like dry wood. The other 2 opened fire. Maeve returned shots, her bullets sparking against their armor, but doing little damage. Kale leapt from the shadows, his small body a blur of motion. He landed on one soldier's back and bit down hard on the joint of his neck. The armor hissed and failed. The soldier screamed and fell. The last soldier raised his weapon toward Maeve. Lyra intercepted him, knocking the weapon aside with a sweep of her arm, then driving her palm into his chest. He flew backward, crashing into a tree, and did not move. Silence returned. Maeve lowered the rifle, her hands shaking, now that the danger had passed. Lyra knelt beside the fallen soldiers, checking each one. They were alive but unconscious. "They will wake soon," she said. "We must go." But Kale was curled near the back of the mine, his glow fading, his breathing shallow. "The egg used too much energy," Lyra said. "It needs rest, but we cannot stay." Maeve helped her lift Kale gently onto a makeshift sling. Lyra carried him against her chest, his head resting near her shoulder. They moved out of the mine into the red-soaked forest, the blood moon high above, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. They had not gone far when a new sound filled the air, deep and resonant like thunder, but mechanical. A dropship descended from the clouds, black and angular, its engines silent, its hull scarred with battle marks. It hovered above the treetops, then landed heavily in a nearby clearing, flattening trees under its weight. The ramp lowered, and from it stepped a figure taller than the others, his armor black with red markings, his face uncovered, revealing sharp features and a long scar running from his temple to his jaw. "Vorik," Lyra whispered. Maeve felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "He is their commander, the Drakthar who destroyed your home." Lyra nodded. Vorik scanned the area, his eyes locking onto them. Instantly, he did not raise a weapon. He simply walked forward, his steps heavy with authority. "Surrender the egg, Lyra." He called, his voice rough like stone grinding against stone. "Never, you cannot win. You are one, you have a wounded bond. A fading egg and a human who does not even understand what she carries." Maeve stepped forward. "I understand enough." Vorik looked at her for the first time, his eyes narrowing. "You are the catalyst, I am. Maeve and I stand with her." Vorik chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Foolish humans always choosing emotion. Over survival, Lyra moved in front of Maeve. Her body tense, KL stirred weakly in her arms. You will not take him. Vorik raised a hand and suddenly the air around them thickened. A field of energy snapped into place, trapping them in a dome of crackling. Red light neural dampener, he said. It will sever your bond slowly, painfully. But you will survive long enough to watch me extract the egg, Maeve. Felt it immediately, a cold pressure in her chest. The warmth fading, the connection to Lyra thinning like a thread about to snap. No. She gasped, clutching her chest. Lyra fell to her knees, her glow dimming, her breath coming in short gasps. Kale whimpered his light. Almost gone, Vorik approached slowly, savoring their pain. You could have joined us, Lyra. You could have ruled at my side. Instead, you chose weakness. I chose life. Life is power, Vorik said, and power belongs to the strong. He reached for Kale. Maeve lunged forward without thinking, throwing herself between Vorik and Lyra. His hand brushed her arm. In that moment, something changed. A drop of Maeve's blood from a cut on her forearm mixed with a tear that had fallen from Lyra's eye onto her skin. The blood moon pulsed above, and the egg answered. A blinding light erupted from Kale's chest. Not fire, not energy, but pure living light. It wrapped around Maeve like liquid starlight, sinking into her skin, her veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. She cried out, not in pain, but in awakening. The neural dampener shattered. Vorik stumbled back, shielding his eyes. Lyra looked up, her eyes wide with awe. Maeve stood tall, her body humming with power, her skin shimmering with faint silver lines like roots beneath bark. She turned to Lyra, and their eyes met, and the bond returned stronger than before, deeper than before, not just feeling now, but knowing. She could hear Lyra's thoughts, feel Kale's strength, sense the forest around them, as if it were part of her. The war egg had chosen, and it had chosen her. Vorik recovered quickly. His face twisted in rage, he raised his weapon again, but Maeve moved faster. She did not attack. She reached out and touched his chest, the same way Lyra had touched the soldier, and Vorik frozen, not from pain, but from memory. For a single moment he saw what Lyra had shown Maeve: silver forests, singing rivers, a world alive with light. His hand trembled. Then the moment passed. He snarled and stepped back, retreating to his ship. This is not over, he shouted before the ramp closed, and the dropship lifted into the sky, vanishing into the clouds. Silence returned to the forest. Maeve collapsed to her knees, the light in her skin fading. But not gone. Lyra caught her, holding her close. Kale nuzzled her hand, his strength returning. You did it, Maeve. Lyra whispered. Maeve looked at her hand, still glowing faintly. I didn't do anything. You chose to stand. You chose to feel. That is everything. Maeve leaned into her, exhausted but awake, more awake than she had ever been. The blood moon began to fade, the red light softening into silver. Somewhere deep in the woods an owl called, and the forest breathed again. They had won this round, but the war was just beginning. It was subtle at first. Birds called in patterns that sounded too precise. Wolves howled in harmony with the wind. Even the trees seemed to lean toward Maeve and Lyra as they moved through the woods, their branches shifting to offer cover, their roots rising slightly to muffle footsteps. Maeve felt it most of all. The hum in her blood had settled into a quiet rhythm, like a second heartbeat. She could sense the life around her, not just see it, but feel it, the pulse of a rabbit hiding in the brush, the slow breath of an old pine, the flicker of fear in a deer as it watched them pass. Lyra watched her with quiet pride. The bond had taken root, deeper than either had expected. You are becoming more than human now, Lyra said one morning as they rested, near a frozen stream. Maeve looked at her hands, the silver lines beneath her skin faint but visible when the light hit them just right. Am I still memmer than ever? Lyra replied. The egg did not change who you are. It revealed what was already there. Kyle chirped from his perch on a nearby rock, his scales shimmering with renewed strength. He had grown slightly larger, his wings more defined, his eyes sharper. He is ready too, Maeve said. Lyra nodded. The war form stirs within him, but it will not emerge fully until the final battle. Maeve frowned. What final battle? The one they are preparing for, sure enough. The sky had grown busy with silent ships moving in patterns too precise to be natural. Radio chatter had increased. Even civilian bands spoke in hushed tones of lights in the sky, of missing patrols, of strange energy readings. The Drakthar were not leaving. They were building, and Maeve knew they could not hide forever. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, She sat by the fire sharpening. Her knife Lyra sat across from her, weaving strands of moss and silver thread into a small charm. What is that for protection? Lyra said it will help mask our energy when we move closer to their base. Their base Vorak has established a command center. Near the old dam, it is shielded but not invisible. Maeve looked up, eyes wide. They're using the dam. It is strong, it is isolated, it is perfect for what they plan. And what is that? Lyra's hand stilled. They are building a resonance amplifier, a device that will broadcast the neural dampener field across the entire continent. It will sever every empathic bond. It will silence the forest. It will make the egg dormant. Forever. Maeve stood, the knife slipping from her fingers. Then we stop them. How we? Go there, we destroy it. Lyra looked at her. You know what it will cost. Maeve met her gaze. If we do nothing, they win either way. Lyra stood and crossed the space between them, placing her hands on Maeve's arms. The warmth flowed between them, steady and strong. Then we go tonight. They moved under cover of darkness, Kale flying high above, scouting the path. The forest seemed to guide them, roots parting to clear their way, branches bending to hide their passage. Even the wind hushed as they neared. The Damit loomed ahead, massive and cold. Its concrete walls, scarred with age, floodlights swept the perimeter. Drones hovered like insects, their red eyes scanning. Vorak stood on the upper platform, overseeing the final assembly of the amplifier. A massive ring of black metal humming with energy at its center pulsed a sphere of red light. They have almost finished, Maeve whispered. Lyra nodded. We must reach the core before it activates. Shokale let out a soft chirp and pointed with his snout toward a service tunnel half submerged in the river. The old maintenance shaft. Maeve nodded. I know it leads to the control room. They slipped into the water, the cold biting, but Maeve barely felt it. The silver lines in her skin glowed faintly, lighting their way through the dark tunnel inside the dam. The air was thick with the smell of oil, and ozone guards patrolled the halls. Their steps heavy, their voices low. Maeve and Lyra moved like shadows, Kale clinging to Lyra's back, his claws silent on her jacket. They reached the control room door, locked from the inside. Maeve placed her hand on the panel. The silver lines in her skin flared, and the lock clicked open. Lyra looked at her, surprised. The egg is learning too, Maeve whispered. Inside the room, banks of monitors showed feeds from every corner of the dam. The amplifier glowed brighter by the second. We need to overload the core, Maeve said. Moving to the main console, Lyra stood guard at the door. Kyle perched on a shelf, his eyes scanning the hallway. Maeve's fingers flew over the keys she had trained on dam systems years ago as part of emergency protocol. Now it came back to her like instinct. Alarms blared, guards shouted. The door burst open. Lyra met them with a sweep of her arm, her touch sending pulses of energy that dropped them where they stood. More Kamikaze leapt into the fray, his small body a blur of motion, his sonic breath shattering weapons and armor alike. Maeve worked faster, the core temperature rising, the system protesting. Then, a voice cut through the chaos. Stop. Vorak stood in the doorway, his armor scorched, his eyes burning with fury. You cannot win, human, he said. The amplifier is already active. Maeve looked at the monitor, the red field spreading outward like ripples in water. No, the warmth in her chest began to fade. The silver lines dimming. Lyra cried out, falling to her knees. The bond thinning. Kale collapsed, his light gone. Vorak stepped forward. You see, emotion is weakness. Maeve looked at Lyra, at Kale, at the forest. Beyond the dam, now silent, the birds gone, the wind still. Then she looked at Vorak, and something in her eyes made him pause. Maybe emotion is weakness, she said softly, but love is not. She slammed her hand onto the console and plunged it into the core. Access port energy surged through her body, the silver lines blazing like starlight. The bond flared back to life, stronger than ever, the amplifier overloaded. The red field shattered. Vorak stumbled back, shielding his eyes as the entire dam shook. Lights exploded, consoles sparked, the core melted into slag. The forest roared to life outside. Birds called wolves, howled, trees swayed as if in celebration. Lyra rose slowly, her glow returning. Kyle stirred, his wings unfolding. Vorak stared at Maeve, his expression unreadable. You sacrificed yourself for a feeling. Maeve pulled her hand free, blood dripping but her eyes clear. No, she said. I chose to protect what matters. Vorak turned and walked away. Not in defeat, but in thought. The dam groaned around them. We have to go, Lyra said. They ran through the collapsing tunnels, water rising behind them. Kale leading the way. They burst out into the river just as the dam cracked behind them, a wall of water roaring into the night. They climbed the bank soaked and exhausted, but alive. The sky cleared, the stars bright again. Maeve looked at her hand, the silver line still glowing faintly. It is not over, Lyra said softly. Maeve nodded. I know, but for now, the forest was safe, and the bond held strong. The days after the dam were quiet, too quiet. The Drakthar ships still circled high above, but they did not land. They did not send troops. They simply watched like hawks waiting for the right moment to strike. Maeve knew it was coming. She sat by the river sharpening her knife again, the silver lines in her skin pulsing faintly with each breath. Lyra stood nearby watching the sky. Kyle rested on a sun-warmed rock, his scales shimmering with quiet strength. They had won a battle, but not the war, and Vorak had not been seen since the dam. That worried Maeve more than anything. He was not a man who walked away from defeat. It was a man who learned from it. Lyra joined her by the water. Her steps light, her eyes distant. He is planning something, she said. Maeve nodded. I can feel it in the air like before a storm. Kale lifted his head and let out a soft chirp, his golden eyes fixed on the horizon. Then a sound broke the silence. Not mechanical, not human. A song faint and ancient carried on the wind through the trees. Lyra froze, her eyes wide. What is it? Maeve asked. The call of the Silthari home. It has not been heard since my world fell. But how? Lyra looked at Kyle, then at Maeve. The egg. It is not just a weapon. It is a key. A key to what? To memory, to hope, to return. Maeve stood slowly, understanding dawning in her chest. They want to rebuild. Lyra nodded, but they cannot do it alone. Before Maeve could respond, the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with ships. Dozens of them descending in a wide circle around the valley, their engines silent, their hulls scarred with the marks of war. At the center of the formation hovered Vorak's command vessel, larger than the others, black and angular like a blade. The ramp lowered, and Vorak stepped out alone, no armor, no weapons, just his scarred face and steady eyes. Maeve reached for her knife, but Lyra placed a hand on her arm. Wait. Vorak walked forward until he stood at the edge of the clearing. I do not come to fight, he said, his voice rough, but clear. Then why are you here? Maeve called. To see for myself. To see what? What you showed me in the dam. Maeve frowned. You showed me that feeling is not weakness. He said, it is memory. It is what remains when everything else is gone. Era stepped forward. What do you want? Vorak, want to remember my own world before the war. Before the silence. Maeve looked at Lyra, then back at Vorak. You destroyed your own home. We were taught that strength meant control, that emotion meant failure. But your bond, your choice, it showed me another way. Silence fell heavy with the weight of years. Then Lyra spoke softly. The Silthari do not hold grudges. We hold space for change. Vorak bowed his head slightly. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask for a chance. Maeve looked at the ships above, then at the forest. Around her, at the silver lines in her skin still humming with life. What happens now? Lyra turned to her. That is your choice. You are the bond. You are the bridge between our worlds. Maeve looked at her hands, then at the sky, then at Lyra's glowing eyes. She thought of her cabin, her ranger station, the quiet life she had known. Then she thought of silver forests, singing rivers, a world alive with light. And she knew. I go with you. Lyra's eyes softened with relief. Vorak nodded once, then turned and walked back to his ship. The other vessels shifted, forming a path into the sky. Kale leapt onto Maeve's shoulder, his claws gentle, his eyes bright with excitement. Lyra took Maeve's hand, the warmth flowing between them stronger than ever. Are you sure? Maeve looked at her and smiled. Where you go, I ga. They stepped onto the ramp together. The ship rose into the sky, the forest below, shrinking into a sea of green and gold as they passed through the clouds. Maeve looked down one last time and saw a single feather fall from Kale's wing, glowing faintly as it drifted toward the earth. A sign that they had been there. A promise that they would return. The stars opened before them, vast and endless, and for the first time, Maeve did not feel small. She felt whole. The ship vanished into the night, leaving only silence and the whisper of a new song beginning among the trees.